right, guys, I'm not going to lie. Last few weeks, last few days, I feel like I am in a knife fight with a monkey. And it's got 8 arms, and each arm has a knife. And I'm on top of a car that's going 300 miles per hour, and RoboCop's on another car shooting at me, and things are exploding. And I'm just sitting here on top of this car, knife fighting this monkey. And I'm just like, I just need to stop, Like, I just need to sit down. I just need to catch my breath. But this monkey, he wants to knife me, and I can't. I've got to keep paying attention, and that's just not in the cards for me right now. So, any case, I'm struggling. I'm still behind on grading for the last assignment. I got a pile of papers from the face-to-face classes I'm still working my way through. And that RoboCop is still shooting at me. He has not given up, and neither is the monkey. And I'm stuck in this horrible, horrible situation. So anyway, let's talk about what we're going to work on this week. You guys have been gathering information for, a couple of weeks now about your topics that you picked and what's going on in the world. So you've been writing these notes, you've been sharing all this information. Now, I told this to the face-to-face class yesterday, and I got a little bit of a shocked response. So I'm anxious to see what you all in the online world, how you respond to this. So I'm just going to throw it out there. Now we start to write the paper. We actually start to write the final paper. Now, the reason that this was such a shock for the other group is they thought they had already started, but no, you have not. All you've done is laid a bit of a groundwork for yourselves. You have all this information. You have hopefully a lot of different perspectives, and you should have at least some ideas of what the trends are, where things are going, what's important. Now, I'm not going to make you guys watch this documentary because it turned out to be a lot more shocking than I remembered it. But we in the face-to-face class watched a documentary about professional wrestling and deathmatch wrestling, and there was a lot of really, trust me, I'm going somewhere with this, so just follow me for a minute. There's a lot of really shocking stuff in this deathmatch wrestling where guys are using barbed wire on each other. They're throwing each other through panes of glass, lighting each other on fire, hitting each other with baseball bats and driving like gusset plates into people's heads. It is just an absolute brutal showcase of awfulness, right? But in the middle of all this, in the middle of this documentary about these deathmatch professional wrestlers, you actually kind of get to see a little bit about what's going on in the background. You get to meet these wrestlers. You get to hear about their backgrounds. How much money do they make? How do they make that money? Where did they come from? You get to see a little bit about how the business is run behind the scenes. How are the events put together? What is the ring like? Stories from past events and how people have negotiated this very difficult world of professional wrestling and how they put these shows on. Now, the point I'm trying to make here with all this, and in an attempt to try to spare you some of the more shocking images, is this. Of course, the documentary is showing us all these shocking images, right? But it also interdisperses it with a lot of personal stories. One of the people who runs this professional wrestling outfit talks about his time in prison and how he ended up there. And when he came out, how he got into professional wrestling because a lot of his professional options at that point were limited. We get to see who the stars are, right? We get to learn about their personal hardships, the financial problems that they are constantly encountering. So think about this. This documentary, we would assume, is just supposed to be showing us all this shocking imagery, right? That's the substance of what we're supposed to be consuming here. But what makes the documentary work, and I would post it, but like I said, it was actually a lot more extreme than I remembered. The point here is, what makes the documentary work is not the shocking imagery, but rather the real human drama that's going on behind the scenes. That's the details, right? The stuff that most people don't see, the stuff that you would have to dig for, things you'd have to ask questions about and actually expend energy in order to retrieve that information, right? Because when people talk about topics that are going on in the news, or people have that general surface level knowledge about things, they often miss out on the really cool stuff that's lying underneath the surface. So in a lot of ways, that documentary, even though it was shocking and, like really, to a lot of people were like, oh my goodness, they had the vapors afterwards. The documentary actually showed something very important. One of the things that makes writing and filmmaking and all sorts of other things, what makes it captivating is the details, right? The stuff that lies just below the surface that you don't see in a casual observance. That's kind of one of the things that I've been hoping you would find as you dug into these topics, getting at stuff that's below the surface and finding those details that really brings the topic to life. I'd hoped that you would stumble upon those things yourself. Now, for the face-to-face class, that did end up being the case. A lot of the students who've been doing this research were able to discuss things that most casual observers of the news would probably have missed because they haven't been digging. So, anyway, now that we got that out of the way, where do we go from here? I'm thinking 2 pages. Let's write 2 pages of our final paper. Spring break is next week. So we definitely need to start getting this final paper, this final product ready to go. We need to start piecing it together. Now, the final paper is basically going to go back to the information you've been gathering, and it's going to give me an argument, right? It's going to be very fancy. It's going to use the material that you've gathered in order to make a nice informed point, right? So we need to talk about a lot of specifics on how to cite material and how to build a paper doing this. But the good news is since we do still have a whole other month left, we have like 3 weeks after spring break, we can't afford to do this slowly. So I'm thinking, don't worry about 2 pages yet. Let's just focus on a single paragraph. I want you to go back to one of your sources, and I want you to don't start your paper. Don't write me an intro. Write me a paragraph that would plop down right in the middle of your paper, a detailed paragraph that uses a source that you've already talked about in your information reports. Now, here's the thing. I've been telling you over and over and over again, relax. Don't make these information reports. Don't think of these information reports as something that's supposed to be very formal, because I haven't been grading them that way, right? I've been grading them mainly as notes. This time, I want you to sit down and I want you to write me a good, solid 10-sentence paragraph. And I want it to be good. I want you to be very careful in the spelling. I want you to be very careful in the development of that paragraph. I want it to have a nice intro. I want it to, develop along like really detailed lines about a single data point that you've observed. Now, this might actually deserve some teasing out. I'm not sure if I've explained this to you yet, data points, because this is one of the things that we actually really need to think about when we start doing a research paper. So let me explain this real quick. When we take information that we've pulled out of an article, something that's not ours, we obviously need to cite it. We need to start talking about it in the context of, this is not my writing. I got it from somewhere else. Now, what do we need to cite? Basically anything that isn't ours. And we have to really work on our opinions and the things that we've kind of brought to the table ourselves. The attitudes that we have, the opinions that we have, need to have some really good, thorough separation from the things that we are using as research. So in actuality, one of the things you really need to start thinking about is, what is your opinion? And how are you going to differentiate your opinion from the research that you've gathered? Because ultimately, research is not about some requirement that has been shoved down your throat, right? You shouldn't be using research just because I've told you to, even though I've told you to. This is actually a kind of a difficult point to egg out of a research paper draft. What you should be doing is you should be using research to make your opinion stronger, right? I'm not using this research because my teacher told me to. I'm using it because I have a purpose for it. That's actually a really hard thing to do for people who don't do research writing very often. Because to look at research and have some type of thinking structure that connects a bunch of different points together, that actually takes some time and it takes some mental effort. And often we in the English teaching world don't take the time to really model that for students. And that's kind of a big problem, because that's essentially what we're asking you to do, is to take this research and kind of actually structure it in a way that it's delivering your opinion. Now, to return to the task I've set before you, I don't want to overwhelm you with a whole bunch of researchy kind of things. What I want you to do instead is I want you to write me a paragraph that talks about a single piece of information that you found over the past couple of weeks. And I want you to tell me why that is important, why that event is important, and why I should pay attention to it. I want it to be very, very developed. I want it to be very edited. And I want you to post that in the brand new discussion forum. And I'm going to actually, for this one, I'm going to do final paper. We're working on the final paper now. When you look at the grade book, though, you'll notice that you have essay 1, 2, and 3 should have grades on it. If you don't have a grade on essay 3, I am catching up on that. So give me another couple of days before you freak out on me. But by all means, after a couple of days, please freak out on me. I've had people who are like, what happened to my grade here? I go back and sometimes I'm like, you're right. I didn't put that grade in. I should have done that. It happens. It's possible. And I do not take offense to that. But, oh, God. Okay. That's right. You got grades for essay 1 through 3. You also have a final paper grade that should not have a value in for it yet because you haven't turned in the final paper. But you also have an essay 4. Essay 4 is going to be another soft pitch grade. I'll tell you about that as we get really close to the end of the course. And that's going to be a little bit more of what we'll call a reflection. So the reflection is going to be basically you looking back on something you've learned. Okay. So that's essay 4. So I want you to go in, get this absolutely perfect paragraph that talks about a single data point, knock out 10 sentences that could be used smack dab in the middle of your paper, and hammer that out. Let's see what you come up with. I'm actually really excited to read those. You pull this off, I'll give you some points in the final paper category. So you can start building your way up to a good grade on the final paper. I think that's all for today. Thursday, we're going to talk a lot more about formally citing your stuff and building this proper argument as you start adding more of these paragraphs in. So the final paper is not something that you're going to be just writing in one night. I'm going to be asking you to slowly piece this thing together. So in any case, I'm just going to kind of sort of stare at the wall for a while and probably go fight that knife monkey again. If you guys are having a great week so far. Knife monkey.